Hello and welcome to Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
Nice to be back after a
It
couple of
is,
weeks break.
yes. Well, you needed it though, Steve. You were very busy. Last week was an amazing week for you, wasn't it? With the shows. I don't know how you managed it. I really don't. But there you are.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it at my age, that's for sure. But you can, being young and sprightly, you can
less
tread the
less
balls.
sprightly than I used to be, that's for sure. I'm knackered all the
Oh yeah.
time. But yeah, we had to take a break last week, and my voice has just really returned. It really went for a while, and over that period of last week, doing shows and things, it's really, yeah, it's been a pretty exhausting couple of weeks. But never mind, we're back. Lots to talk about. A few weeks ago, you were talking to us about a cat picture, which you've now finished. So we will talk about that a little later on. But we've also got a couple of questions that have come in and things that we can talk about. But so we'll get onto that in a moment. How are you, Dad? Though, you okay?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Full of the joys of spring, I might add. We've been out and about, and it's lovely now. There's some when it's not raining and miserable as it has been the last few days, but we've had some nice weather, and we've been out and about, and it's lovely this time of year. It really is.
Good, good. Do you feel like you do more painting this time of year now, or do you feel you do less?
No, I don't. Not really. No, I've settled into quite a routine now. I've got other things we do. As I say, we go out quite a lot, and we've had the work done here, and that's been stretched on for well over 6 months now. We've had bits and pieces done, so we've been pretty busy with that. And but so the painting really has kind of taken a backward step a bit. I think probably one of the reasons is, Steve, you find that in the end you've done it, been there, done that, and you think, well, what can I do that's new? Hence the cat that I've done. So what I've done is return to some of the things that I've done before, and it with a different, I think, with a different slant on it. I think people might see, especially when they see the cat later on, you see, well, that's changed a bit. I think I put more. I don't put more work into it, but the work I put in is kind of changed a bit. I can't describe it very easily, but it's there's more. Sometimes I've always said that when you're doing artwork, really, you shouldn't really labour it too much. I've seen this done before, and when I had my gallery, people spend too much time trying to get it right. And my experience has been recently that the less you do, the less work you actually spend, or less time, should I say, rather than work, time you spend on a project, it seems to come out better, more original, fresher, and less fussy. Does that make any sense to you? It's the way I see it, and I think when people perhaps see the pictures that I'm doing now, they might see that. They may not. I don't
Interesting.
see.
Because I was going to ask you whether you actually spend longer over your paintings now. Do you take more time over your paintings? But you've answered that with kind of the opposite.
Absolutely right. That's put it in a nutshell. Really, I don't. I spend an hour, maybe 2 hours at the most. Sometimes it's a fleeting moment. I look at something. Oh, I think I'll change this. I don't. I don't spend the time on it. No, not like I used to. At one time or other, when I first started out, I used to spend hours and hours. And I found that possibly as you get older, you don't have quite the concentration that you had when you're young. But I find that that is, in fact, a benefit. And I've seen that benefit come out in the work I've done. I'm just doing a picture at the moment. And it's a landscape. I think I told you I was going back to a landscape. And I've noticed on this, whereas one time, particularly trees and buildings, particularly, I used to labour it, spend a long time trying to get the exact replica of what I was looking at and the reference picture. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm finding that has definitely benefited the finished work, and I like it better. I like it better because it's quicker, I suppose you could say, and it's not laboured, and that comes out in the picture. The picture looks fresher because of it. That's my opinion.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the cat picture. We'll show everyone that picture a little bit later on so people can see what you're talking about. In the meantime, we will cover some questions that have come in. The first one was from Catherine, and she said, can you recommend which pastel sticks are closest to the pencils that you use? It would be useful for covering large areas and save me going through too many pencils. Now, normally we would in the past we would have recommended Polychromos pastel sticks by Faber Castell because they are a harder, chalkier pastel than soft pastel. But unfortunately, those are now discontinued, as everyone knows. Even though we've got a fair amount still here, actually, on our shop. So if people still wanted to get hold of them, we do still sell them individually. We've got a backload of stock that we've still got, so people can still get hold of them if they want to try them. But unfortunately, they're discontinued. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk about other harder pastel sticks that are available, because at one time we could have also recommended the Caran d'Ache pastel cubes, but unfortunately they're discontinued as well now. It seems like all of these harder stick pastels, the slightly larger stick pastels as well, are all just not really used as much. And I know we've talked about that in past podcasts, but I thought we could use this opportunity, Dad, to talk about other ones that might be useful.
Well, surely, I suppose the ones nearest would be now the Cretacolor sticks. That they're the same consistency and they work really well with the pastel pencil. I, I can I can kind of sympathise with the manufacturers when they say that we're going to. I think it's done its run now. We'll stop them because Swan Stabilo did the Carbathello sticks, and they went, and now we've got others going, which means that they weren't selling, and I do understand that because with pastel pencils they are still going like hotcakes, and I hope they never drop out. At least after I've gone, I don't mind, but until then, we don't want them to go. I don't think they will because there's such a following with the pastel pencil. But really, and I've recently I've done some backgrounds using just pencils. I haven't come down to the sticks, where at one time I would have used the sticks, and I think the main reason for that was the pastel matte paper. That because that can absorb more as long as you put more colour on it, and I found that I'm kind of not using them as much either. But if you want to use them, I think probably the best thing to do is to get the Polychromos sticks that we have in our store. It's a good opportunity to get them. The one good thing about the pastel is it doesn't deteriorate. I mean, I've still got some of my original Carbathello sticks now. They're 30
Wow.
years old, well over 30, 35 years old. Still okay. Still okay to use. So that's the one good thing about it. So if you got them, then it's a worth investment, I think. But they're the ones that I would say Cretacolor would be the nearest. Um, there was a softer stick pastel that Faber did. I don't think they do them anymore. The half sticks they were. I don't
Yeah, they
think,
still do that. I think so. Yeah, I think they still do
do
the
they?
half stick
Well,
pastels.
if
Yeah,
they do those, again, I would say that they're probably some worth considering.
yeah. They're called the Creative Studio set. They're very affordable as well. These half stick soft
Mm.
pastels. They're not quite soft. Then they're not quite the consistency of soft pastel, but they're not hard either.
No, they're not. Definitely not. But it's a toss-up, really. If I was going to choose between Cretacolor sticks, which are harder, I think harder than the Polychromos, actually, a bit more scratchy. Whereas the Faber one, not the, yeah, the Faber Creative Studio, you said, those one, those probably would be better. And especially if you're looking at filling the paper, they would fill the paper really well. I'm not a great lover of putting, as you know, soft pastel or pastel sticks even to cover large areas. I'd prefer to use the pencil, but then that's me,
Mm.
and I don't mind the time, but it does take longer, obviously. And I can understand people saying, "Oh, I don't have to use quite so much pencil." You find you use as much pastel sticks, though, they'll go down because they're softer than the pastel
Mm.
pencil.
Mm.
And it's each to their own. And
Yeah.
so I wouldn't put people off, but I can only say what I do.
Mm. Absolutely. Lovely. Excellent. Well, thank you, Catherine, for the question. I hope that's been interesting for you and others out there. Moving on to the next email we have from Jonathan. And Jonathan says, I would like to ask Colin about a thought that occurred to me. I've visited several large amateur and professional artist public exhibitions, and I noticed that not one artwork exhibited was painted in pastel pencils. Even soft and hard pastel stick paintings appear very few in number too. I was wondering, as pastel pencils has greatly increased in popularity over the years, why is this the case? I would be very interested to hear Colin's views on my observations. It is amazing how popular pastel pencils are now, and they're still not chosen as sort of a primary medium to produce. I mean, they are, but they're not um, more widely used in the public exhibitions and stuff. It's
That's right.
crazy.
It's always been that way. Right from the beginning, when I first started out, I was the only one doing them. No one was doing pastel pencils. I did them because I liked them. I enjoyed doing them. And when I started doing portrait work, Pet's portrait particularly, they were much easier to handle than watercolor or acrylic or oil. But the public still seem to think that pastel is not really a professional medium. I disagree with it, but that's me. And I think Jonathan is right, actually. You'll find that people prefer to have an oil painting on their wall or a watercolor painting on their wall. Not so much acrylic, but that's that's still reasonably popular. Gouache is another medium that works quite well. Pastel pastel sticks, particularly, are messy. They are very difficult to work with. Your hands get completely covered in different colours, and you have to keep washing them or not. So I wouldn't use pastel sticks. Pastel pencil, however, is a wonderful medium to use, as people know, and I wouldn't have done it any other way. I started out with watercolor. I started out using oil because I thought that's what people wanted, and I never really got on with oil, but I did get on with watercolor. So I would have and would stick to watercolor if it hadn't been that the pastel pencil came along. I think people know the
Mm.
story,
Yeah.
don't they, about I wanted to do a pet portrait and I couldn't do it with watercolor. Simple as that. But pastel pencils work well. But we've done very well over pastel pencils, and our people that have followed us have done very well as well.
Yeah, we know that there are pieces of art going into exhibitions. Recently, we had someone on our Facebook group just say that they're entering into it. They're doing an exhibition, entering some pieces, and we know that past students recently and way back have been entering their works into exhibitions as pastel pencils. So it is happening, but it does seem to be very, very few and far between. And I suppose, yeah, as you say, it's just taking its time, filtering through the masses as being a serious medium. Um, but
There's one other
yeah,
point that I've raised there. I think the pastel pencils is a great medium for people from the leisure point of view and being able to do something because they are creative. Not necessarily, I don't think many of our members would actually exhibit in art shows. They're doing it because they enjoy it. I did it because I enjoyed it. And I didn't really exhibit, I can't remember exhibiting a piece in an exhibition ever. I've sold quite a lot of pastel pencil paintings to commissions or to people who came to the gallery, but I never exhibited them. And probably for the same reason that Jonathan's talking about, they don't necessarily go down well. So I think it's more from the point of view of the creative, the hobbyist artist being able to use their creative talents in not so much with a view to selling it or to exhibiting it. That's how I see it.
it's a really good point. Yeah, really good point. Well, if anyone has anything to add to that, please let us know, and we'll talk about it perhaps next week if people send in their thoughts and responses to that discussion. We'll perhaps bring it up next week and see what other people have to say, and also we can also continue the discussion over on our Facebook group. So if people want to chat about it on there or share their views, then that's what the Facebook group is for. Okay, let's move on to your cat picture then this week. It's absolutely beautiful. We'll pop it up on screen for everyone. And I just adore that background. I think I said in the last podcast it was reminiscent of your early works in the gallery. And I just think it looks great. And I wouldn't actually have assumed you would do a green background for a cat like this, or certainly that kind of green background.
I probably wouldn't have done if I hadn't seen the photograph. The photograph sold it to me. In fact, I think probably like you, when I saw that background on the cat on the photograph reference, I thought, gosh, that looks really good. It brought out the eye. And this is the whole object of the exercise. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the green background. And this, you're quite right, it does look absolutely stunning because of that reason. And the eye is super as well. Now, coming back to the eye and the nose of that cat, well, I was talking about earlier, when we opened the discussion here, I was talking about time. Didn't take me very long to do. Either the eye and the nose was even quicker. Ordinarily, I would have gone back onto that nose and rejigged it and made it absolutely perfect. But when I saw it, I thought, that looks really good. Why do I need to touch it again if it looks that good? If I kind of like skipped across it. In fact, I don't think I don't remember videoing it. It was part of the setup that I was doing, and I think I just did it with a view, really, possibly at that time, to go back and then go over the top of it, and rejig it on the video. But it looks so good, I wouldn't do it. I've left it. And the eye's the same. So once again, I think this goes to show something that I was mentioning earlier. You don't have to spend the time on it if it works. And I think if I'd gone back and I'd fiddled with the eye and fiddled with the nose, it wouldn't have had the same impact. You can only go by what you think at the time. And so I think this is again a little breakthrough for us.
Absolutely. And the bottom half of the cat almost looks impressionistic, in the way that you've sort of it forces all your attention to go to the face. It gives you somewhere to focus in on because the the lack of detail at the bottom, which is what the long fur of a cat doesn't really have any detail, so you still get the texture, but that forces your eyes to focus more on the face where all the detail is. So it's not a hard. It sounds an odd comment, but it's not a hard picture to look at.
No,
You know, it's not.
one time, Steve, I would have chopped it off at the bottom. Well, I don't need all that. I just, a couple of inches below the chin, and that's enough. But I decided not to, simply because, once again, when I looked at the original photograph, I loved it. I loved the pose. I loved the idea of having more of the cat in there. And see, the thing is, you can't lose, because if I decided that I didn't like it all, I just chop it off. And what you would have put on the screen then is something that I've done before many times. Or I could have just done it in a fog, like I've done before. But this time I liked it, and if I like the original photographic and it hits me, then I stick to it. And that's what I've done here. But I've got to tell you that that was a bit of artistic impression there. I didn't follow exactly what was on the photograph. I copied the idea, not the actual.
Interesting. Really interesting. And the colouring of the fur looks really great. Did you mention last time there's a Caran d'Ache colour in there that I'm picking out an orange?
Yes, there's two or three Caran d'Ache. I'm falling on them more and more now. Not, as I said, I think I mentioned that last time. The basic set of colours are Faber Castell. I always start with them, and they are kind of staple tones, really. But then you need sometimes, especially in this cat, you needed something to brighten it up. And there's quite a lot of Caran d'Ache in there, yes. More than any of the Cretacolor or the Carbatello. But they've all got their places. I think this is a wonderful thing about what we do now. We've got, although people have got to, if they want to follow what I do, they've just got to buy the pencils. But I think they can buy them, because we give them the individual colours. They can buy them, and once you've bought them, you're almost certainly going to be using them again. Rather than buying a whole set of Caran d'Ache, which is quite pricey, buy the individual colours that I suggested, because you're going to be using them again. And I almost certainly, some of the pencils are wearing down now, and I have to get some replacements. But you don't use a lot of them. You use a lot of the Faber pencils because you're putting base colours in with them. But because the Caran d'Ache is softer, it's more spontaneous, and you don't need so much of it.
Great. Yeah, no, I can tell the colours. I can see them in this picture, knowing the range as I do. So I think it definitely brightens it up, and adds a level to this picture that it wouldn't have had without them. So yeah, great job, Dad. I hope people are looking forward to doing this one. It will be a class on the picture, a class on the website. It might not have the nose in there, but we'll see when I get the footage through. But yeah, we'll have that up there on the website.
Can I perhaps finally bring on a point that's just dawned on me? That cat picture and all the other pictures that I've done and all our members have done, some fantastic work is being done now. How many portraits, pet portraits, do you see in exhibitions? Not many. And the reason you don't is because you're doing individual, you're doing commissions, or you're doing cats for people, or horses for people, or dogs for people. So therefore, they don't necessarily go into exhibitions. It's landscapes and still lives and all the other seascapes and this that people want on their wall. So another reason why probably they don't see, or Jonathan doesn't actually see when he goes to these exhibitions, too many of pet portraits. Or so that's the reason.
It's the subject material as well as the medium itself. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, good point. Good point. So, what's next? You mentioned you're working on a landscape at the moment.
I am, and I've taken some liberties with this as well. And it's Maple Durham Mill. Did I tell you last week? Was it? No, I don't think I
You
did.
didn't, but you've done one of these Maple Durham mills before.
I did, but it's a completely different view of it. It's it's a popular view because television cameras and film cameras have actually used that as in their productions. So it's probably when people see it, it's particularly the view that I've got. They probably would see that as being, oh, I remember, I've seen that somewhere before. So it's recognisable, but it's a lovely picture, and it's got everything in it. It's got a watermill in it. It's got trees and buildings and everything. But I'm taking some liberties with it, I've got to say, and because I kind of follow the picture, I follow the idea, but changing one or two things that I think would look better. So that's going to be interesting.
Sounds interesting. Yeah, sounds good.
Yes, well, you'll see it. You'll see it next week.
Fantastic.
I'm well over halfway now.
Brilliant. Excellent. I look forward to seeing that. Excellent. Well, as always, if anyone has anything they'd like us to discuss, please drop us an email, get in touch with us, and we'll bring it up on a future episode. We'll show off your picture next week, Dad, see how you're getting on with that. And if anyone has any comments about what we've discussed today, then please let us know. Continue the discussion, either on Facebook or for a future episode. But for now, we will leave it there for this week. So thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley. Enjoy your week.
Your week.